Welcome to the EmpowerME podcast, your essential listen for dancers navigating their college journey and beyond. Dive into conversations with esteemed industry leaders, educators, and experts as they shed light on the diverse avenues within the dance world. Our mission is to offer clear guidance and essential information, empowering dancers to confidently shape their future in dance. I'm Nikki Lucia, veteran studio owner, high school dance team coach, proud mom, and the founder of EmpowerME Movement Network. This episode is with the beautiful and powerful Lauren Adams. Lauren is a versatile and accomplished dancer, choreographer, and educator with an impressive commitment to artistic expression and a holistic approach to teaching and nurturing dancers throughout their journey. In this conversation, she discusses her inspirations in dance and the mentors who have guided her along the way. She talks about her love for teaching and the importance of connecting with dancers on a personal level, and shares her firsthand experiences working with the Ohio State dance team. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the EmpowerME Movement podcast, and I would love to welcome Robert Contreras and Lauren Adams to our show today. Hi, guys. How are you doing? Welcome.
Hello. I'm excited to be here.
So excited.
Yeah. We're very, very excited to have you, Lauren. I mean, we've been friends for some years now, and I am just elated that you can kind of tell your story about your dance journey and shed some light on your pathway into your dance career for those dancers that are looking for their next path in dance. So where did your dance journey begin?
Well, I started dance at the age of 7 in a suburb outside of Detroit, Michigan. Mainly, my mom put me in dance because I was super shy. So the whole first year of dancing, if my teacher looked at me, I would turn to the bar and start crying. And it wasn't until I really got on stage for my first recital that I felt that sense of freedom that I became, addicted to. And it was kind of, being on the stage was the feeling that I wanted to kind of keep chasing after that first experience. And I think a lot of people would say I'm not shy now, which is actually not true. But I think dance helped me kind of cope with just life in a social way. So, and so I started at 7, grew up a competition kid, started going to conventions probably around 12 years old, then started touring with my first dance convention, NYCDA. I'm currently at 24/7 Dance Convention, and yeah, that's my life. I'm in it.
Yeah. So right out of high school, you started touring with NYCDA?
Right out of high school, 17. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I moved to New York City at 17 and reached out to Joe Lantieri and Leah Brandon, who was managing director at the time, and just said, I'm in the city. I was in their gala for top 5 dancers in 1999. And at that time, they really, they would bring out their winner, like their top 2 dancers. And I just said, I'm here if you need anybody. So they hired me right away. And then I never looked back. So
They hire you as an assistant?
You
started as an assistant?
Yeah, I started as an assistant.
From the assistant, at what point did you then become faculty member?
So I was an assistant, I want to say, for 2 seasons. And then I started their children's program with them. So that was their first children's program. I was the director of that. And I did that for 2 seasons. And that's when I felt like I kind of needed a little bit of a shift. And so I thought I was saying, thank you so much for this opportunity. I love you all, but I need to try to spread my wings and try something else. And they said, wait, hold on a minute. Don't leave. We want to try you for faculty. So I was really young. Yeah. I don't know if my math is adding up, but I was in my early 20s when I started on faculty, maybe 23.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Growing up as a dancer, who were your biggest inspirations?
So growing up, Susie Taylor was my number one. Like, absolutely. The first time I saw her teach, full-blown tears. And every time since I've seen her dance, I've fully cried. I mean, I remember being like a 13-year-old dancer, and she was actually teaching at a convention called Jeff Shade, which doesn't exist anymore, before NYCDA. So that was the first time. I think I was 12, and a teacher of mine at the time said, oh, you are just going to love this teacher. So fell in love with her, went to some other studio in my area, took her class there, absolutely bawling my eyes out. She was dancing to Sting, Fields of Gold. And
you can even remember
every
the
convention,
song.
she would step on the stage and my tears would well up. It was like Taylor Swift for me.
Yeah.
That's how Susie was. And Mia Michaels, I was absolutely obsessed with her, everything about her choreography and just eclectic vibe, and Jill and Thierry, that they really took me under my wing. And then I got introduced to Jason Parsons, who has since become one of my very best friends, and he really took me under his wing when I moved to New York City and gave me a lot of performance opportunities. And he's probably my favorite person to dance next to and with, and I love his choreography.
Yeah, and that's how we met. We met through Jason. I remember
Jason.
always going to visit Jason, and then
Yeah.
you lived in the area, and we'd go and meet you and have lunch or something. So
He's a connector. He's a Libra.
Yes.
So he's introduced me to so many people in the industry, and he's such an advocate to this day. He kind of has a really good way of seeing you for who you are and what your worth is, and connecting you to the right people. And
yeah, those are some great inspirational people. In your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
For sure. Oh, and then Peter Chu. I mean,
Well, yeah.
what would Peter do? I love him.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think that you love the most about teaching?
I love connecting with dancers one-on-one. I think that's actually my strength. And I think so I choreograph a lot of solos. I would say probably more than most people. That's a big focus of my work. And I love kind of tailoring movement and costumes and just processes for dancers to dive deeper into kind of discovering who they are so that they can really be generous artists. Because I feel like sometimes we need a little help seeing ourselves from the outside in. And so if that's something I can offer, I really, really love that. And I just love that mentorship role. If I can ever have that, I'm so proud to have students that are now dancing professionally in different, lanes in the industry. And it's really, really fulfilling to think like, wow, I knew you when you were just kind of starting,
Right.
So this week I went to my Instagram, and Hamilton the Musical had posted something about me, which was shocking, but it was a dancer from the company that I had met when she was a kid, and she took my class, and I didn't know this was happening. She didn't tell me. She just said that moment changed my life. And, those moments are not common. Sometimes they can be really rare, but when you feel like maybe you did have a hand in shifting the trajectory of someone's life, I think that's really my purpose. And it's a blessing to be able to do it through this medium.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just a couple days ago, one of those things just happened, right?
Yeah.
You were teaching class here the other night, and you had a dancer that you had given Weekend Warrior to, which is, the Weekend Warrior Award. I mean, you could explain it better than me.
Yeah, so I currently teach at 24/7 Dance Convention, and we have a scholarship that we have called Weekend Warrior, where we select one dancer out of the whole weekend. There are thousands of kids at these events, and I really take that scholarship very seriously because it reminds me of why I started. It's we're there to hopefully find and laser in on somebody and connect with them, and again, just like stay in touch with them, develop a relationship. And so my Weekend Warrior from San Diego last year, I wasn't in San Diego this year on tour, she saw that I was teaching, so she surprised me and came in and took class.
That's awesome.
I know.
That was so special.
Yeah.
Those type of awards we don't realize, or sometimes we forget how impactful and what. I remember as a kid getting a little thing from Patrick Swayze on the back. She said, you have star quality. And I still have it to this day.
Yeah.
And it really made me believe that I could do it. So those awards are so impactful. So I love that you take it so seriously, because it can really do a lot. I also just want to talk about your choreography for a second, because what I love about your work, Lauren, is it is so emotional. Like your movement along with the music, I just feel every time I watch a Lauren piece, the dancers know how to exude and tell the story, and it's so beautiful because every time I think of your work, I think of it as emotional, delicate, and powerful. And you have such a great way of making girl dancers look so powerful and expansive. So I just wanted to share that about your work.
Agreed.
That's like the greatest compliment, because those are my goals. It's like how can we embrace all of our humanity, or specifically speaking about women or womanhood, how do we embrace paradox? Can we be sensitive and nurturing, but also like ferocious and fierce and, and powerful? And I want everyone to see all of that. Like sometimes life is really beautiful, and sometimes it's really gnarly, and sometimes it's both at the same time. And so it can be really challenging sometimes if someone's working me for the first time, because they're like, well, this is just so many things at once. And so it can be hard to try to cram that into a 45-minute class or a 1-hour class. But I do think that dancers that have been on a journey with me, if they trust me to kind of like see into a capability or potential that they have, and they're willing to take those risks and, you know, step outside the box and maybe look funky or, you know, silly, because I think there's an element to that. Like sometimes there's a sense of humor in the piece. I think of some of the saddest moments in my life, and I can vividly remember one moment just like laughing in the shower until I started crying. Like I couldn't tell what was first. Was my heart broken, so I was laughing and I was, you know, trying to cover up for it? Or was I emotional and then I realized, like, it's kind of funny, it's not that deep, you know what I mean? But I love a journey. I want someone to take me on a journey. Show me all sides of your personality. I don't want you to just come out and be sad for 2 minutes or, you know, like there has to be more to the story. And so how can we use movement? And sometimes I think people think that I'm so serious, but it is a form of play for me. So like sometimes I'll make up these weird moves and think like, this is so cool, you know, like we're doing the air guitar and the sad, sad solo. And so I love when the dancers get that, you know, and they like Gianna, your daughter, like we have an air guitar in her solo. And but the things that you said are things that are just so, so important to me. Like how can we be delicate and nuanced and also powerful? Because I feel like a lot of times dancers feel like very early on they relate to one or the other, and then they just do that. Like I'm a soft dancer. I'm lovely. I dance slow. Yeah. Or I'm gonna hit it until I quit it every single time. You know. Right. So how can we like find some valleys in there?
Yeah.
Well, I love that you said that about her choreography, because I really truly feel that's who you are as a person.
Oh, that's really sweet.
You are delicate yet powerful.
Yes. And
you embody all of those things, and then you put it into your choreography for them to experience, and that's really beautiful.
I love that.
So, yeah.
For sure. Nicest thing you've ever said. Wow. Yeah.
And going into your teaching, and as a teacher, because as a choreographer, as a teacher, what is your philosophy as a teacher?
I mean, I think being present and available and open are the most important keys to success. And I would say it's so important to me that dancers are just willing to try, because I will say that's where I held myself back a lot. You know, when I was growing up, I remember taking classes at the Edge. I went to an open class and we had to, I don't know, balk like a chicken or something going across the floor. And I just was so uncomfortable. My skin was crawling. I just kept on dancing and grabbed my dance bag and just exited stage right. I was like, no, I can't do this. You know, I just did not feel confident. And so I do try to challenge dancers to do things that are going to make them feel uncomfortable. And a lot of them don't like it. And I can tell they don't like it. And that's hard for me because I want everyone to like me deep down. But I also know, like, bigger picture, if you are willing to just be there and go on the journey and commit to this moment right now, whatever it is that I'm asking, then you're probably ready for most things, because I really do go in with a pretty challenging set of asks, I think.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just being open, being grounded, being positive, making eye contact, nodding, verbal communication. Someone who's communicative in this space is, I mean, that is my number one.
We talk a lot about generosity of spirit and how important that is, and that you are responsible for your energy in the room.
And I gravitate towards those people, as anyone does. You'll see those dancers, they rise, and they rise in most situations. You know, I think, and if I'm just going to segue, in my generation, we grew up as people pleasers, I think. I wanted every teacher to like me, so I was going to be a teacher's pet. I didn't even think if I liked the choreography. It was not even on my mind. I was just like, that's what we're doing. I'm doing it the best I can do it, you know? And I think sometimes now the dancers do have more power to choose, and so I can see very early on the ones that are willing to go there, and then the ones that are like, we're just gonna sit this one out and just get through it, you know what I mean? So sometimes I feel like I wish that there wasn't so much pressure on dancers to like have an opinion about everything or overthink about it, because they don't know until they try. Like, you actually look gorgeous right now, but you didn't even know that you had that in you, or you didn't understand, like, that could look like this. So I don't know if I'm answering the question or just doing a do-si-do, but
Yeah.
So I know you're an avid book reader, right?
Oh, I try.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, do you have any other like people or anything in your life that you find inspiration from?
Film. Hands down, favorite thing. If I'm not watching film, I'm not inspired. I'm also obsessed with documentaries, so any documentary I can get my hands on, I'm so into. There was a documentary that was just released on Netflix. I think it's called Harley and Katarina, about an Olympic figure skating duet partnership. Oh, that one took me through it. It is so powerful. Their story and just like the athleticism meets artistry, but also just their circumstances and then the music on top of it. And you think about all the people that are behind the scenes to kind of deliver this story, and there's something so beautiful about that. You know, you think like they show them skating for the final time, and I think the composer used her instruments in reverse somehow.
Oh.
And it made it so overwhelmingly beautiful. I can't stop thinking about it. Honestly, it was so beautiful. So yeah, film for me. I love up close details. Even in work, you know, we're creating for stage, but I'm down to like, where's your index finger on that? Is this a profile? You know, are your eyes closed here? You know, are you softening through the chest? Because I like to look at it in a more intimate way, the work. But then how do we project it? So I love like the best of both worlds. Ballroom dance I got into for a while, and that's like so exaggerated, and how much space can you take up? And we're dancing in spaces where there's thousands of people, you know. So how do you project emotion to a room of thousands of people versus how do you project emotion when there's a lens that tight on you? Very different approaches.
Right.
Yeah. So I love film.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Lauren, Nikki shared with me that you are teaching at OSU. How did that come about?
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
This is wild on so many levels because I'm from Michigan, so that's like a rivalry, right? And my husband's from Ohio, and he's a huge Ohio State fan, his whole family. My dad I don't even think he would believe that I'm working at OSU. Is the funniest thing because nobody in my husband's family works there, and they're like, oh, here she is. And it's so interesting how we met because, and I admitted this to the entire team, so I'm not saying anything to you I wouldn't say to them. I was not a dance team fan. In fact, I was very against dance team for dancers. And selfishly because it would conflict with scheduling a lot. So when I'm going to studios and I'm trying to choreograph, oh, we're not available on Friday because we have football games and we have rehearsal and we have practice. And I would see how that could sometimes burn my studio owner friends, where they would lose kids because, you know, once they get into high school, now they want to be more social and they want to pursue that path. And their hearts would break because it's these kids you've invested in since they were little, and, you know, this is what they want to do now. So for the longest time, I was against it. But I'm curious by nature. So, you know, I was starting to kind of come around to the idea, like, it's not going anywhere. So, how do we lean into it? You know, I want to know about it, basically. So I had reached out to Melissa and the head coach at OSU, and I'd heard a lot about her throughout the years because a lot of people would say, oh, you should go work at Ohio State. And I had a meeting with the dance department, actually, when I first moved to Columbus. And that didn't really lead to anywhere, so I just kind of put that to rest for a while. And but in terms of the dance team, I started seeing that the dancers that are being selected for the team now are like convention kids, very high level, well-trained, beautiful performer dancers. And I was thinking, what is happening here, right? And a lot of them are at Ohio State. So I reached out to Melissa, just wanted to kind of like get to know her, and we struck up a friendship. And we're working on a project that we can't really discuss right now, but throughout getting to know each other through that project, she said, I really need someone that can come in and work with these dancers on sort of a hybrid of Pilates, yoga, and dance. Is that you? And I was like, well, I'm certified in Pilates mat. I love yoga and I love dance. My nature is I have imposter syndrome, so I want to recommend other people that are specialists in Pilates. But then I was thinking about like the dance piece of it, and I was like, I think I could do this. Like, I actually would like to have a shot at incorporating some of the other information that I have, you know, working with Irene Dowd, who teaches at the Juilliard School, and she teaches functional anatomy. I've studied with her quite a bit. And through Zoom recently, and it just to me is interesting. I love using that part of my brain. So she said, "Hey, let's try to do a 4-week series." So we did a 4-week series. She's like, "Kids loved it. Do you want to extend? Let's extend it." So I would meet with them like every Wednesday for an hour and 15 minutes and just kind of meet them where they're at. Do you need Pilates today? Do you need more stretching today? We explored movement. So yeah, it's been a very humbling and inspiring process because dance team is not what I thought it was. It's actually really beautiful. The culture is very team-oriented, and I feel like I'm used to kind of mentoring dancers on a one-on-one basis. So to see everybody in the space having the same goal, like we're going to nationals, we're doing these 2 pieces. My victory is your victory, your loss is my loss. Like they really are a family in the truest sense. And so I feel like I've been embraced into that world in a little bit, and I get the hype now. I get it. I'm like, kids that want to do this. And I think something I've talked about with Melissa, and you and I have talked about too, is like, how can we make this work for people so that their kids can have this social experience and they can experience that side of dance without compromising if they still want to be a convention dancer or have a classical base of education. Like, we don't need to rule anything out. Let's just work together so that they can have their best training and then decide what fits best for them.
Yeah, I mean, that is really why I became a high school dance coach. Owning the studio for many, many years, I was running into the same issue that you were just speaking to, where my kids would go into high school and then leave their training to be on their dance team. And I got to the point of, it doesn't have to be this way. You can really do both if you have the coach and the studio owner working together. So I couldn't beat them. So I joined them and I took the job. I've been doing it for 8 years. And I would say most of my high school dance team are still training at studio. I would say almost all of them are even in company. They're in the dance company, or they are, taking multiple classes a week. And I really stress, the ballet training is so important. So it can be done. It can be done. It just, you have to work together. And I have been that studio owner that has struggled with that whole experience. But I think, unfortunately, we need to find this spot where everybody can kind of communicate and work together so that, college dance team is a viable option for dancers who are training at such an elite level.
Absolutely.
And it is a viable option. We know this, but it's just not as celebrated yet, I think.
Well, I think the key word that both of you guys are saying is both working together, merging together. Because, I feel, Lauren, I was the same way. It was actually my conversations with Nikki before she created the EmpowerME movement, when, she was talking about dance team and how there are schools now, dancers are getting, full ride scholarships, or they're putting more money in these dance teams. And it really started opening my eyes. Like, I've always just said, let's get kids to college to go to concert. And not everybody wants to do that. And through our conversations, I have to change my mind about dance team. And being the director of Studio Fusion, a lot of the kids are on a dance team in Huntington Beach. Now, 2 of our teachers at the studio are the ones who run the program. So again, it's this, we're working together. And I'm now excited to have that, because not everyone's path is going to be concert. And now there's another viable path. And then through the EmpowerMe movement platform, I'm learning so much more, that there's other, because you've even talked about, there's POM, there's like, if you just want to do show team or just do the games,
game day.
All that stuff I didn't even realize. But it is the working together, because it is, and you've also mentioned, Nikki, too, and I'm sure the coach at OSU has also mentioned that they're looking for trained dancers. Absolutely. And they want the dancers to be training. So there are kids that say, I'm going to do dance team, that's going to be my focus. It's those coaches for those dance teams need to also be encouraging the kids, stay at your studio, let's work together, because we want the best dancers. We want the best dancers at our studio, and they all have different paths. And these dance teams want the best dancers as well. So it's really about working together.
Yeah. And I hope that more high school level teams start recognizing that, because a lot of these dancers that are being recruited are not dancers that are solely training at just their high school, because to be at that level, you have got to be putting in the time. These are some of the most elite athletes in the country. They truly are. So, being at the studio every day, all day is going to lead to, being at the caliber that everyone's trying to recruit. And it's a recruiting model for a lot of these programs now. So it's not like you can just go into a blind audition. You kind of have to start building a reputation long before you're ready to make that choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you're selected.
Right, absolutely.
And Lauren, you brought something up, and because it's very close to me as well, the somatic work that you do, which is Pilates and the yoga, that how important do you think that is? Because I feel like there is a movement in dance where we are starting as educators start to realize that work is really the foundation to keep our dancers healthy. So I love hearing that you're teaching that at the school.
Yeah.
What is your thought on the merging of both these worlds? How has it affected your dancing or teaching, or how are the kids responding to it? Because I know not a lot of teachers are doing this somatic work.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, they're so respectful. All of these kids are so respectful. I think for them, I'm speaking for them because they have not directly told me this, but they're enjoying the process of learning a little bit more about their body. I really think to me, everything comes down to intention. So, obviously in a performance, what is your intention? But even deeper than that, what are you intending through your movement? Where is that energy initiating from? What's the impetus? How do we clarify that pathway of energy so that we're efficient, that we're moving in a safe way? And I didn't even call my classes, but Melissa had shared something on Instagram saying they're doing active recovery with Lauren. And I thought that was such a wonderful way to describe what we're doing in this space, because I want it to be dynamic. I don't want them to just be sitting and holding a split. You know what I mean? How can we really clarify and intentionalize pathways, because that's going to help in a cleaning process. That's going to help through performance. And I'm just fascinated by the body. So for me, it's awesome to be able to work with elite dancers and artists and athletes on that work, because I do think that in general, they're more curious about it. And it would probably be more challenging in a convention setting to do some of that, but I do that. And I will say where I have the most success is working with little kids on it, because when you start with them when they're little and you explain to them, what muscles attach to which bones, and it doesn't have to be the most elaborate or even just how many vertebrae are in your spine.
Yes.
They have this sense of waking up and having more awareness and more intention through their body, instead of just thinking what's the move for this combo? I'm bigger picture. How can you access more precision, more intention, more detail in your work? There has to be some sort of foundation.
And I agree with you. It does help in the cleaning process. I've noticed that, it does. When the dancers all understand how the body functions, when you go to, it makes the cleaning process easier. So if there's dance teachers out there listening that don't have somatic work, I really encourage that. But you know what? They get more curious about how their body's working. And it also, I think it gets them away from comparing themselves to everybody else, because we're not necessarily looking in the mirror. Everything is about feeling from the inside. So I love that. I love that you're doing that with them and that they're getting that work, because it's so important.
I appreciate that too, now that you say that, because I'm in a very different role there with them. I'm not in a, let's do a combo and let's single you out and let's film you, which can sometimes give me so much anxiety. I'm just what do you need today? How can I be of service? And I will say, I had this thought very early on with them, because I thought my movement is very different than dance team. So I don't want to go in there and be let's get all shifty and gooey through that spine. And we're we need you here for pom. That's not going to be beneficial. Or if I'm trying to break down how to do a pirouette and I'm thinking, if we drop the weight this way and we, do it with the sits bone reaching to the heel in a certain way that I'm thinking, and they go from being able to do 15 pirouettes to 3, well, that's not ideal. And that might be great in my work, but I need to kind of have respect for how they do what they do and get things done.
Yes.
But it has been nice, I think, for myself to just be a person of support. I want you to feel healthy in your body. I want you to feel grounded. I want you to feel calm for this hour, for whatever that's worth. And that's a nice contrast to sometimes what I have to do in other aspects of my work, which is so much pressure. So they have so much pressure, but I'm not part of the pressure.
Yeah.
So I think I love that job.
Yeah.
Because I get to not be the one, coaching and stressing about results and all that.
Yeah. So you're doing this somatic work with the OSU dancers, and you're teaching on a convention beautiful contemporary on convention. Where do you think you see yourself moving into with your career in the next 5 years?
That is such a hard question. I mean, really, I don't know. I mean, I'm craving change, and so with OSU coming into the picture, that was very cool. I'm like, yes, I get to study and use a different part of my brain, and I love being a student. So even though I was a teacher, it encouraged me once I started with them with OSU. I'm like, I need to sign up for some more courses. So I'm going to look and see if Irene Dowd is offering any courses. Great. She offered a course on the anatomy of the knee and the psoas. Great. So I'm going to do those, just things like that. I would love to invite more of that kind of work into my world. I would love to dive deeper into study. I would love to maybe get further certification in Pilates. I think that would be amazing. In terms of choreography, I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. But I will say I do have some interest in getting behind the camera in some way. I want to do more dance on film. I was very into that for a while. Then COVID happened, and then I had my daughter, so I kind of slowed down on some of that. So I want to get back into creating more dance for film. I would love that, and I would love to. My husband's a producer, so I would love to work with him on some projects that we have in mind. And, whatever else happens. I try not to think too far in the future because, life can change so quick,
Right.
So.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
With dancers that are getting ready to graduate, or maybe even a dancer that's getting into college, what's like the best advice you have for them in if they want to pursue dance in school? Mm-hmm. What's like the best advice you'd give them?
Go visit, go see the school, like get your boots on the ground there and see what the vibe is there for you. See a performance if you can, talk to dancers that are currently studying there if you can. I've done that a lot where I've connected students that are currently looking for school with students that are in programs there. Like, hey, I have a dancer here. She's thinking about this school. Would you mind getting on the phone with her and sharing your experience for what it's worth? But I really think when you get into a space, you'll get a sense of if that's comfortable for you or not. And funny story, I went to Marymount Manhattan College for a year, not to study dance. I went for the tour. I didn't like it. I knew I didn't like it. I got a scholarship there. I was lazy, so I went. And it was not a great school for me. But I met all my best friends there. So I know that for whatever reason, I was called to go to that school. Yeah. Those are still some of my best friends at this stage in my life. Then I transferred and studied at Hunter College for a bit. And I'm glad I didn't go to Hunter College that first year because there were not a lot of young students. City school. So by the time I got there, I was 18, 19. Everyone in my class, a lot of people were like in their 30s and 40s. So that's a pretty big age gap at that point, So I don't think I would have made friends if I had gone that route first, even though, there were some programs there that I was interested in studying. And I absolutely learned more at Hunter in journalism department, social work department, and nursing. Those were 3 areas I was super interested in. And I got to use some of my journalism training. And I've actually been able to write for a magazine. And so that was really cool. But yeah, I feel like just being there and getting a sense of what that feels like for you. But my favorite quote is, you can't get it wrong. So say you go somewhere for a year and it doesn't pan out, you can transfer. It's not the end of the world. I know a dancer right now that's currently transferring from, I don't know if I need to say the school, but they're transferring. And it's all good. It's a journey. It's not always linear. So
I think that.
Go ahead.
I think that's so important to remember because I've heard people say that before too. Actually, Peter Chu would give advice to my dancers, and that was one of his advice. Like, don't stress so much because if you're there and it doesn't fit, you can easily transfer and try another school. It doesn't mean that that's where you have to stay, and I think that's really important for them to remember.
Right. So exactly, because I think right now, it's very much a stressful thing in the world for dancers, to make this decision and be sure about it and make sure you're getting in the right school, in the right place, at the right time, and all of that. And that's part of the reason why I built the EmpowerME Movement Network, is to really shed light on all the vastly different programs, so that dancers can research many different things in many different areas of the country, down to different majors or different types of dance teams, so that they can get that, broad look at what, is available to them. Absolutely. Because I think that they don't really know that there's that many options out there for them. And what I loved hearing you say is that, it's not that deep. It's the journey. And so just be present in the journey And if you end up somewhere and it's not a fit, you know, you can always make a change. And that's great advice for dancers who are, especially like someone, you know, like my daughter who is going through it, anyone that's going through, you know, applying to colleges and, you know, or if you're a dancer and you're doing video submissions for a dance program or for a dance team, that is to take a deep breath and just be present in the moment and know that it's okay. It doesn't need to be all that stressful and that deep, because there are a lot of options for you.
There are so many options. And that is something I love about your platform, is that it is in one place and you can kind of take a look at it, and you're not having to spend thousands of dollars to get on an airplane and get a hotel and check it out and then realize, that's definitely a no for me. So we didn't have resources like that back in 1999, and we didn't have as many options as there are now. And I think sometimes people can get zeroed in on, you know, the same 3 schools, and then there's only so many spaces, but there's so many beautiful programs. So I love that you've been able to collect all the information for the dance team world and, you know, a traditional dance or conservatory approach. And then you have access to all of that. And something I love about your network that I didn't realize until just now is that there's this like social component to it where dancers can upload videos and they can interact, but it feels like it's in a more safe and focused space. It's not just Instagram or, you know, TikTok, but
safe, focused, and supportive. Too. Yeah.
Absolutely. I would have loved to have had something like that, because when I was growing up, it was very much, you don't study dance in school, you know, you were going for your backup.
Yep.
So that was, you know, what I was thinking. And I didn't have a backup. There wasn't anything else that interested me, really. I was curious about things, like gathering information from journalism and social work and all of that. But it didn't have the hook in me like dance does, you know? So that was all more supplemental. But it felt stressful and taxing to have to put so much focus on my studies and not be able to use that time to focus on dancing. But I do think that, I mean, dance programs everywhere are getting better and better. The demand is so much higher. And therefore the pressure is much higher for dancers. And that is what makes me sad. You know, I think, again, just like kind of going back to, you can't get it wrong. Even if you don't get the answer you want now, when you look back, you always see that was what was meant to be. Right. You know, if that train was for me, it would have stopped. I would have gotten on it. It wasn't my train. So, you know, maybe I pivot, and this ends up being a beautiful thing. But a lot of dancers that we know, you know, like Peter Chu went to Point Park first. He didn't go to Juilliard that first year. He graduated from Juilliard. Austin Goodwin, another friend of mine, didn't get into Juilliard. That was his dream school. Went to NYU, was waitlisted, then got into Juilliard. And, you know, those dance departments don't always get it right. You know, they don't always see, you know, how can they? They have so many submissions. So it's not really a measure of what someone's future success is going to be. We see that on convention too. You know, sometimes that person that's like the most winningest dancer, they don't really end up doing it, you know, and then you've got these other people that were just fighting the whole time all along, and look at them now, you know. So it's a piece of the journey. It's an important decision. You're spending a lot of money, so you want it to be a decision that you're happy with, but you can always pivot.
Love
that.
that.
You know, and you brought up that, you know, you're right. Back, I mean, when I graduated in '93, there wasn't a lot of options and for dancing in school there is now. And you're right, it was go find a backup. And I want to say that I think it shifted a little bit, that we are realizing now that if you go study dance, or if you have dance in your life, whether you become a professional dancer or not, there's so many different pathways. I know so many friends that have become Pilates instructors or yoga instructors, or they've become physical therapists for dancers and are still, you know, my Pilates teacher, she would say, I'm still a dancer. I'm still a professional. I'm still a dancer because I teach through you, when at the time I was a professional dancer. She's like, so I'm training you to keep your body safe. And in turn, you're going to perform. That's my connection. So
I love
that has changed, and with the more options. How do you think dance has progressed in the last few years?
Wow. It's always evolving. This is maybe not exactly answering the question, but I think about just how everything is kind of melding together. So looking at dance team and convention, that's like melding together.
Yeah.
Looking at Broadway and contemporary choreographers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who
With,
thought
like,
that was
Sonia,
coming?
like with Sonia
Right.
Taya on Broadway, taking
Yeah.
what she does on Broadway.
Absolutely. So many of the choreographers on Broadway now are actually concert contemporary choreographers. And there's a lot more shows that are immersive, that are asking more from dancers so that they're more well-rounded and that they can speak and they can sing. And, you know, I hope that something that's changing in the dance world is that we're taking care of our dancers better. I think that's an area that we're really growing and pushing. And so I'm happy to see that. Even in the dance team, I can speak to just the limited information that I know, the way that Melissa, the head coach, has been able to advocate for those dancers, that they are being provided meals and shoes and, you know, just beautiful resources, and the facility is on another level. And hopefully, you know, she's guiding them in different ways for like scholarship opportunities and internships. And then something just to advocate for choosing dance team as a path, which I wasn't always as open-minded to, is that they're studying something else in school. So they're going to graduate with a degree, and, you know, they're going to be well kind of respected and taken care of in the community, because they do treat their athletes very well at Ohio State. But I think in general, it just keeps opening up and growing. You know, it's like some of my favorite choreographers are probably maybe more in that like what am I thinking? Performance art realm. You know, so I love seeing that. I love seeing just more skill brought to the table, different skills, people working together, merging in that way, and just taking care of each other, trying to treat dancers as with respect, the same way we treat athletes.
Right.
I would love to see that more for the dance departments, because I see that happening in the dance team world. So if we could make that happen, that'd be awesome.
Right. Okay. Well, that was so enlightening, Lauren.
Oh, it was so
Speaking with you,
fun.
it's like I feel like I learned so much more
Me
about
too.
you.
I was just gonna say that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh my
and I
gosh.
loved it, and I love that you are sharing your journey through all the different aspects through dance. It's not just been choreography and dancing. It has been your, you know, work in film and your somatic work, your Pilates, like all of those different pathways that you have chosen throughout the years from your background, I think is really amazing to hear. It's really, really great.
Great.
Loved
What a
it.
wonderful interview. Thank you,
Yes.
Lauren.
Thank
you so much
I
for
love
being
you
here.
both. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you for tuning in to EmpowerMe Movement podcast today. If you found value in our conversation, you can join us at EmpowerMeMovement.com to access more resources for dancers and join our vibrant community. In our next episode, Gina Pirro joins us. Gina is a wellness educator and personal development coach who teaches the art of life mastery in mind, body, and soul. Through her extensive education and her own life-altering experiences, Gina has inspired audiences worldwide for 2 decades. Gina shares with us her background in dance and how she became a high-performance coach. We discuss the importance of mental awareness and the challenges dancers face in maintaining their mental well-being. The conversation dives into the struggles dancers face when making decisions about their future in relation to college and career choices. You won't want to miss this inspiring conversation. Please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review. Until next time, thank you for being a part of our journey.